Hey, this is the World Advice Channel. What I want to talk about today is a darker topic, but it needs to be said, which of course you can see the title of this video and know what it's about, which is a topic of would there actually be a race war in America? Now, this is a topic that people have been discussing for decades. There's been a lot of chit chat about it. Would it happen? Would it not happen? And Americans, for anyone who's paid attention to American history and has lived long enough, has remembered that they've been hyping this up forever, since the 1950s, 1960s, 1970s, 1980s, 1990s, even up to the 2000s. This is something that people have been hyping up for a long time, and I just want to discuss, would it actually happen, this particular thing, this particular scenario, in a very logical, straightforward way so you can understand it. Anyway, I will explain to you, for people who are not familiar with politics, what has happened in a way you can understand and anyone can understand. So anyway, let's get started. So when it comes to the topic of would there ever be a race war in America, the simple answer to the question is I don't believe there ever truly would be. Because the biggest problem with that whole idea of would there ever be a race war in America, believe it or not, because even though black people, we tend to stereotype ourselves, and just in general the world for that matter, stereotypes ourselves as losers and this and that and blah 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 blah. You've heard, if you're black particularly, you've heard it a million times. We are actually quite, and not even quite, we are actually very influential in media. Percentage wise, there's more black people who are famous than literally any topic or any race of people in existence. Is there more white entertainers? Yes, but look at how many more white entertainers there are out there than there are white people there are in America than there are black people. And even still, it looks like it's kind of 50-50, with it. We have a lot of famous black people in the United States. So the truth of the matter is, we are too influential in media. A lot of people have created bonds and have grown to like us, and so on and so forth. So the idea that there would ever be a true race war where we have black people who are so influential is simply kind of out there at this point. Not to mention, on a ground-to-ground basis, we have black and white people have, of course, interacted a lot more nowadays, especially compared to previous generations, where at the very most it's just like, knowing how a lot of white Americans are. Historically, they hate black people, but they like black music and entertainment, so they would just simply, if anything, we'll listen to black music and entertainers, we'll make exception here, but when it comes to black people on the street, we hate them with a passion. That is kind of a thing of the past now, because now, since segregation mostly ended, white and black people interact with each other all the time, now on an everyday basis, and have grown to kind of like each other and realize, particularly on the white side, a lot of things we were taught about, that they were taught about black people, is not true, and they're good people. They're not all criminals, they're not this, they're not that. So that's the truth of the matter that a lot of them understand. So a lot of them have built bonds with black people, and a lot of black people have built bonds going back or going the other way. So the idea that there'd ever be a true race war is kind of out there, and if there'd ever truly be something similar to that, which it would not be a race war, would just be simply Democrats versus Republicans or liberals versus conservatives. But the idea that there would truly be a race war is kind of far-fetched, as not only did I provide evidence to kind of pretty much disprove it, the truth of the matter is, what would cause it though? Like, that's a question that obviously comes up, that's just down to common sense. What would cause it though? Because we already know, at the end of the day, if any time a situation happens, a lot of the people who are willing the most to fight for black people whenever a hate crime happens are white people, just like the Department of Justice, just like all the racial supremacists like Dylan Roof and the guy, the Buffalo mass shooter who they put in jail. A lot of people who helped put him in there were white, and they're not leaving anytime soon. ever for that matter. So what would be the cause of it though? Like, would it be like a mass catastrophe? Because most times the situations, wars break out more like, it tends to be caused by a cataclysm. Like, for example, someone goes on a mass shooting or something. They shoot up a lot of black people, maybe in this case, or a bombing that kills anywhere from dozens to maybe 100 or so people. The truth of the matter is, what would the scenario be? Because even if something like that were to happen, I highly doubt it, and I feel if anything, the government would definitely do something about the person who's responsible. So how would that? So that's a first scenario that could happen. So what would cause that? So how would that even work though? Like, because we already know the government's going to punish the people. We already know the government is most likely going to do a greater crackdown on white supremacist groups for that, because of that, because the pressure from the public would be on them to do it. So the idea that would cause it is simply false. Even if there was a mass catastrophe, not to mention there's very good resources and very good intelligence to prevent that from happening. White supremacists have been trying to do that for ages now. They've been trying to commit mass murders and mass bombings and stuff for ages, and they always get busted. So that's one thing to kind of make clear as day. So not only is first and foremost the idea that there would ever be a mass cataclysm against black people simply very unlikely, because they have very good intelligence to bust people when they try to pull off that stuff. Secondly, even if it were to happen, how would that even work? Because we already know the government themselves is made up mostly of white people, and they would punish the person who is responsible for that really badly. It really, 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 really badly. So obviously that's common sense too, So to think that it would be a case of, all of a sudden black people are pissed at white people for that, when we really know a lot of white people would be on our side, is kind of foolish. Not to mention the second main scenario, which obviously is just simply we're not getting along anymore. How would that even work either? As I already said, and made it kind of clear, for anything like a race were to happen, there would have to be some sort of situation that would make it likely that, we're not getting along on a massive scale. Okay? The truth of the matter is that's all bullshit. White people and black people in mainstream society get along fairly well. I'm not going to act like it's perfect, but we get along historically overall quite well. It's more the South that happens, and we already know who the instigators in that situation are. In all honesty, it's the white Southerners. They're the instigators. It's nothing new. Even if you're white, let's admit it. We know they're the instigators. They're the ones who start the shit, but most of America is not made up of the South. Okay? So the truth of the matter is, how does that even work either? For that to really happen, you would have to have some really shitty diplomacy skills for a situation like that to happen. As it's so easy to, if anything, make it a left-wing versus right-wing issue, if anything. So, the kind of, and what I mean by that is that, like, whenever a situation kind of, happens, we can kind of paint it as, it's just conservatives being the conservatives. And obviously the liberals can make it look like, okay, okay, this is the conservatives being the conservatives like they usually are. Racist, so and so and so. Okay. And the liberals, of course, will be on our side. The white liberals particularly will be on our side. So the truth of the matter is, how would that even work though? Like I was continuing on with what I was saying though. That would mean that it would have to, communication would have to break down for both left wing and right wing white people on both sides. It would have to completely break down. And what would be the cause of that to even happen? Most of the issues and topics we focus on anyway is just really party based. How would that even happen though? Like I said, we already know a mass catastrophe of a racial bombing or this and that would not happen. So that's one thing we've already gotten clear from this video. The second scenario is simply down to propaganda and miscommunication, how the fuck would that happen either? When everyone's just focusing on left wing versus right wing nowadays anyway. So how the hell would that happen? Like the idea that there would be a race war is simply far fetched. I don't believe it. It's all hype. It's been hyped up for years. Maybe like in the 1960s or 1970s, it could happen. But now, looking at it nowadays, I don't believe it would happen. It just doesn't make any sense. And the modern world does not work that way anymore. So, truth be told, when it comes to answering this question, we would not have a race war. It's very unlikely. So, anyway, this is my video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you like this video and like videos like this, remember to thumbs this video up and hit the subscribe button. And that's all I have to say. And simply put it, later.